The Sacred Path to Self-Realization. A complete guide to recognizing spiritual signs and awakening your true nature. Introduction. There was once a traveler who spent his entire life searching for a hidden treasure. He crossed mountains, sailed oceans, and walked through deserts. He consulted wise teachers, studied ancient books, and listened carefully to those who claimed to possess secret knowledge. Years passed. His hair turned gray. His body grew tired. Yet the treasure remained undiscovered. One evening, exhausted and discouraged, he sat beneath a tree and whispered to the heavens. "Why have I searched so long and found nothing?" As he sat in silence, a strange realization arose within him. For the first time in his life, he stopped searching. He stopped striving. He stopped looking outward. And in that stillness, he discovered what had always been present. The treasure was not hidden in a distant land. It was hidden within the one who had been searching. The traveler himself was the treasure. Perhaps this story found you because part of you recognizes its truth. Perhaps you have accomplished many things in life, yet still feel a quiet longing you cannot fully explain. Perhaps there are moments when everything appears normal on the surface, yet something deep within you whispers that there is more. More understanding. More meaning. More awareness. More of who you truly are. This longing is not a mistake. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is often the first sign that awakening has already begun. Many people spend their lives distracted by external pursuits. They search for fulfillment through possessions, achievements, relationships, status, and approval. Yet even after attaining what they once desired, a subtle feeling remains. A question lingers beneath the noise of everyday life. Who am I, really? This question has echoed through every age of human history. It inspired philosophers, mystics, sages, and seekers from every culture. The search for self-realization is ultimately the search for the deepest truth about your own existence. It is the journey from illusion to reality. From unconscious living to conscious awareness. From identifying with temporary conditions to recognizing the timeless presence that exists beneath them. The ancient wisdom traditions of the world have pointed toward this truth for thousands of years. Even within the Bible, we find remarkable clues. In Luke 17 verse 21, Jesus states, "The kingdom of God is within you." Consider the profound implications of those words. If the kingdom is within, then perhaps what we seek has never been outside ourselves. Perhaps the peace we desire, the wisdom we seek, and the power we long for are not distant destinations but hidden dimensions of our own consciousness. This audiobook is an invitation to explore that possibility. Together, we will examine the spiritual signs that often appear during periods of awakening. We will The hidden longing within. Before every great awakening, there is usually a period of restlessness. It often arrives quietly. Not as a dramatic event. Not as a voice from the sky. But as a feeling. A subtle sense that something important is missing. Many people attempt to ignore this feeling. They fill every empty moment with activity. They distract themselves with entertainment, work, social obligations, and endless goals. Yet the longing remains. It waits patiently beneath the surface. You may have experienced this yourself. Perhaps there have been moments when you achieved something you once desperately wanted. A promotion. A relationship. Financial success. Recognition. And yet, after the excitement faded, a surprising question emerged. Is this all there is? This question has marked the beginning of countless spiritual journeys. Not because success is wrong. Not because worldly accomplishments have no value. But because they were never meant to define your identity. The deeper self seeks something that external circumstances cannot provide. It seeks truth. It seeks meaning. It seeks wholeness. It seeks remembrance. There is an old parable about a fish swimming through the ocean. One day the fish hears stories about something called water. The fish becomes fascinated. It asks other fish where water can be found. Some point east. Others point west. Some claim water exists only in distant places. Years pass as the fish searches desperately. Finally, an older fish smiles and says, "My friend, what you seek is what you are swimming in." The younger fish is confused. "How can that be?" The older fish replies, "You cannot see it because you have never been separated from it." This simple story contains a profound spiritual truth. The awareness you seek may already be present. The peace you seek may already exist beneath the noise of thought. The wisdom you seek may already reside within your own consciousness. Yet because it has always been present, it is often overlooked. Pause for a moment and reflect. What if your spiritual journey is not about becoming something new? What if it is about remembering what you have forgotten? Many spiritual traditions teach that human beings experience a kind of amnesia. Not a loss of memory regarding facts and events, but a forgetting of their true nature. As children, we often possess a natural sense of wonder. Life feels mysterious. The world feels alive. We are curious, present, open. Then gradually, we begin collecting labels. We learn who society expects us to be. We develop identities. We become attached to stories. I am successful. I am a failure. I am intelligent. I am unworthy. I am this. I am that. Over time, these stories become so familiar that we mistake them for ourselves. Yet the deepest spiritual teachings suggest that these identities are only temporary garments worn by consciousness. They are not the essence of who you are. This idea appears in the Bible in Romans 12 verse 2. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Notice the wording. Transformation does not require becoming someone else. It requires renewal. A shift in perception. A change in awareness. The hidden longing within. Before every great awakening, there is usually a period of restlessness. It often arrives quietly. Not as a dramatic event. Not as a voice from the sky. But as a feeling. A subtle sense that something important is missing. Many people attempt to ignore this feeling. They fill every empty moment with activity. They distract themselves with entertainment, work, social obligations, and endless goals. Yet the longing remains. It waits patiently beneath the surface. You may have experienced this yourself. Perhaps there have been moments when you achieved something you once desperately wanted. A promotion. A relationship. Financial success. Recognition. And yet, after the excitement faded, a surprising question emerged. Is this all there is? This question has marked the beginning of countless spiritual journeys. Not because success is wrong. Not because worldly accomplishments have no value. But because they were never meant to define your identity. The deeper self seeks something that external circumstances cannot provide. It seeks truth. It seeks meaning. It seeks wholeness. It seeks remembrance. There is an old parable about a fish swimming through the ocean. One day the fish hears stories about something called water. The fish becomes fascinated. It asks other fish where water can be found. Some point east. Others point west. Some claim water exists only in distant places. Years pass as the fish searches desperately. Finally, an older fish smiles and says, "My friend, what you seek is what you are swimming in." The younger fish is confused. "How can that be?" The older fish replies, "You cannot see it because you have never been separated from it." This simple story contains a profound spiritual truth. The awareness you seek may already be present. The peace you seek may already exist beneath the noise of thought. The wisdom you seek may already reside within your own consciousness. Yet because it has always been present, it is often overlooked. Pause for a moment and reflect. What if your spiritual journey is not about becoming something new? What if it is about remembering what you have forgotten? Many spiritual traditions teach that human beings experience a kind of amnesia. Not a loss of memory regarding facts and events, but a forgetting of their true nature. As children, we often possess a natural sense of wonder. Life feels mysterious. The world feels alive. We are curious, present, open. Then gradually, we begin collecting labels. We learn who society expects us to be. We develop identities. We become attached to stories. I am successful. I am a failure. I am intelligent. I am unworthy. I am this. I am that. Over time, these stories become so familiar that we mistake them for ourselves. Yet the deepest spiritual teachings suggest that these identities are only temporary garments worn by consciousness. They are not the essence of who you are. This idea appears in the Bible in Romans 12 verse 2. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Notice the wording. Transformation does not require becoming someone else. It requires renewal. A shift in perception. A change in awareness. The person who awakens is not becoming something new. They are uncovering what has always existed beneath conditioned thinking. Consider a real-life example. Imagine a woman who spends 20 years pursuing approval. Every decision she makes is based on pleasing others. She chooses careers others admire. She says yes when she wants to say no. She suppresses her authentic desires. Then one day, something changes. Perhaps a relationship ends. Perhaps she experiences burnout. Perhaps a difficult challenge forces her to reevaluate everything. Suddenly, she begins asking questions she never asked before. What do I truly want? Who am I when no one is watching? What matters most? The crisis becomes a doorway. The breakdown becomes a breakthrough. The external event was not the awakening. It simply created the conditions for awakening to occur. This is why spiritual signs often emerge during periods of uncertainty. Many people assume awakening begins when life is comfortable. In reality, awakening frequently begins when old structures start collapsing. A career changes unexpectedly. A relationship ends. A dream falls apart. A familiar identity no longer fits. At first, these events may seem unfortunate. But from a deeper perspective, they can represent invitations. The universe sometimes removes what no longer serves your growth. Not as punishment, but as preparation. Take a deep breath and consider this. Have there been experiences in your life that seemed painful at the time but later revealed themselves as blessings? Many people can identify at least one such moment. The job they lost led them to their true purpose. The relationship that ended opened the door to self-discovery. The failure that devastated them became the foundation of future wisdom. Life often speaks through paradoxes. What appears to be an ending may actually be a beginning. What appears to be loss may actually be redirection. What appears to be chaos may actually be transformation. The hidden longing within you is closely connected to this process. It is the soul's way of inviting you beyond limitation. It whispers that there is more to discover. More to understand. More to become aware of. The longing is not evidence of incompleteness. It is evidence of potential. Imagine a seed buried beneath the soil. If the seed could think, it might believe the darkness is permanent. It might resist the pressure of growth. It might fear the cracking of its shell. Yet without that cracking, the tree could never emerge. Likewise, many of the experiences that feel uncomfortable during awakening are simply signs that something greater is trying to emerge through you. The longing is the seed. Awareness is the sprout. Self-realization is the flowering. Throughout history, seekers have attempted to understand this mysterious pull towards something greater. Mystics called it divine remembrance. Psychologists described it as self-actualization. Philosophers spoke of truth. Spiritual teachers referred to awakening. Different words. The same essential experience. A movement from unconscious living toward conscious being. A movement from identification with form toward recognition of awareness itself. A movement from seeking fulfillment outside oneself toward discovering the source within. As Jesus taught, "Seek, and you shall find." These words carry deeper meaning than many realize. The search itself is part of the process. The questions are not obstacles. They are pathways. The longing is not a problem to solve. It is a compass pointing toward your deepest truth. Practical reflection exercise. Take 5 minutes today and sit quietly. Without distractions. Without music. Without your phone. Ask yourself these questions. What am I truly seeking? What do I believe will finally make me whole? What if what I seek already exists within me? Write whatever arises without judgment. Do not try to force answers. Simply observe. The purpose of this exercise is not to find immediate certainty. It is to begin listening. Because awakening often begins not with speaking, but by listening deeply enough to hear the quiet wisdom that has been waiting within you all along. In the next chapter, we will explore why spiritual signs begin appearing during periods of awakening and what these mysterious experiences may be attempting to reveal. Why spiritual signs appear. Have you ever experienced a coincidence so unusual that it made you stop and wonder? Perhaps you were thinking intensely about someone you had not spoken to in years, and moments later they called. Perhaps a specific message kept appearing everywhere you looked. Perhaps a book found its way into your hands at precisely the moment you needed its wisdom. Or perhaps a particular number seemed to follow you from place to place, appearing on clocks, receipts, license plates, and phone numbers with such frequency that it felt impossible to dismiss. Experiences like these often mark the beginning of a deeper inquiry. Many people brush them aside. Others become fascinated. But those who are undergoing spiritual awakening frequently discover that such events begin occurring with increasing regularity. Why? Why do spiritual signs seem to appear during certain seasons of life? Why do meaningful coincidences emerge precisely when we are searching for answers? And what are they attempting to communicate? To understand this phenomenon, we must first examine how we normally perceive reality. Most people move through life in a state of psychological autopilot. Their attention is consumed by routines, responsibilities, worries, and goals. They rarely pause long enough to observe the deeper patterns operating beneath the surface of experience. Imagine driving a familiar route every day. After a while, you no longer consciously notice the details around you. Your mind fills in the gaps automatically. You arrive at your destination having barely registered the journey. Many people live their entire lives in this way. They are physically present but mentally elsewhere. Spiritually speaking, awakening often begins when this automatic mode starts to weaken. Suddenly, awareness becomes sharper. You begin noticing details you once overlooked. Patterns become visible. Connections emerge. Life appears more alive, more mysterious, and more meaningful. What changed? The world did not necessarily become different. Your awareness became different. Pause for a moment and reflect. Could it be that spiritual signs are not always new events? Could it be that you are simply becoming more conscious of what was already present? This idea aligns with both ancient wisdom and modern psychology. When your attention changes, your experience changes. You begin seeing possibilities that were previously invisible. You begin recognizing connections that once escaped your notice. You begin participating consciously in a reality you previously experienced unconsciously. There is a fascinating story often told among spiritual seekers. A man spent years praying for guidance regarding his life's purpose. Every day he asked the same question. What should I do with my life? Months passed. Then years. Still no answer appeared. One afternoon, while walking through a park, he noticed an elderly gardener carefully planting flowers. Curious, he asked the gardener. How do you know which flowers to plant? The gardener smiled. I listen. The man looked confused. You listen to flowers? The gardener laughed gently. No. I listen to life. Life is always speaking. Most people are simply too busy talking to hear it. Those words changed everything for him. He realized he had spent years demanding answers while rarely becoming quiet enough to receive them. Spiritual signs often appear when we begin listening. Not merely with our ears, but with our awareness. The Bible offers a similar insight. In Psalm 46 verse 10, we find these words. Be still, and know that I am God. Stillness has always been one of the great gateways to higher understanding. Not because stillness magically creates wisdom. But because it allows us to perceive what constant mental noise conceals. Many spiritual signs emerge during moments of heightened awareness. They function like gentle taps on the shoulder. They invite us to pay attention. They encourage us to look deeper. They remind us that life may contain dimensions beyond what appears on the surface. One of the most common spiritual signs involves synchronicity. The psychologist Carl Jung described synchronicities as meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained solely through cause and effect. Imagine thinking about changing careers. For weeks, the idea occupies your mind. Then suddenly conversations, books, videos, and unexpected opportunities all begin pointing in the same direction. The events may appear unrelated. Yet together they create a meaningful pattern. Are synchronicities supernatural? Different people answer differently. What matters most is not the label. What matters is the invitation. Synchronicities often encourage us to become more conscious participants in our lives. They remind us that our inner world and outer experience may be more connected than we realize. Another common spiritual sign is recurring numbers. Many people report repeatedly seeing sequences such as 111, 222, 333, or other patterns. Some interpret these numbers symbolically. Others view them as reminders to remain present. Still others see them as evidence of increased awareness. Regardless of interpretation, the deeper value lies in the effect they produce. They interrupt unconscious living. They bring attention back to the present moment. They encourage reflection. Take a deep breath and consider this. The true purpose of a spiritual sign may not be the sign itself. The true purpose may be the awareness it awakens within you. Consider recurring dreams. Dreams have fascinated humanity throughout history. Ancient cultures viewed them as messages from deeper levels of consciousness. Modern psychology often regards them as symbolic expressions of the subconscious mind. Imagine someone repeatedly dreaming of standing before a locked door. Night after night, the dream returns. Eventually, they realize the dream reflects their fear of stepping into a new chapter of life. The door represents possibility. The lock represents hesitation. The dream becomes a message from within. Not predicting the future, but revealing the present. Spiritual signs frequently operate in this way. They illuminate what already exists beneath conscious awareness. They reveal beliefs, fears, desires, and opportunities waiting to be acknowledged. Strong intuition is another powerful sign. Most people have experienced moments when they simply knew something without being able to explain how. A quiet feeling. An inner certainty. A subtle nudge. Unfortunately, many people have been conditioned to distrust this aspect of themselves. They have been taught to value only logic and external evidence. Yet intuition often functions as a bridge between conscious and subconscious awareness. It allows deeper intelligence to communicate with the conscious mind. This does not mean every feeling should be followed blindly. Wisdom requires discernment. However, awakening frequently involves learning to trust your inner guidance more deeply. One reason spiritual signs increase during awakening is that the subconscious mind becomes more active in conscious awareness. The teachings of thinkers such as Joseph Murphy emphasize that the subconscious mind influences far more of our experience than we realize. Beliefs stored beneath conscious awareness shape perception, behavior, and expectations. As awareness expands, unconscious patterns begin rising into view. The result can feel like life itself is speaking. In a sense, it is. Because life is reflecting aspects of your own consciousness back to you. This is why assumptions matter. When you repeatedly assume limitation, you often notice evidence supporting limitation. When you cultivate empowering beliefs, new possibilities become visible. Your consciousness acts like a filter through which reality is interpreted. Awakening gradually reveals this relationship. You begin recognizing that changing your inner world influences how you experience the outer world. Practical reflection exercise. For the next 7 days, carry a notebook with you. Each time something feels meaningful, unexpected, or strangely significant, write it down. This might include synchronicities, recurring numbers, intuitive feelings, meaningful dreams, unexpected encounters, powerful insights. Do not rush to interpret them. Simply observe. At the end of the week, review your notes. Look for patterns. Look for themes. Look for messages that seem to repeat. Most importantly, ask yourself, what is life inviting me to become aware of? Because spiritual signs are rarely about predicting the future. More often, they are invitations to awaken more fully in the present. And as you will soon discover, the universe has many languages through which it speaks. In the next chapter, we will explore how to recognize those languages and understand the deeper messages hidden within them. Recognizing the language of the universe. Imagine arriving in a foreign country where you do not speak the language. At first, everything seems confusing. People are communicating all around you, yet you cannot understand what they are saying. The words reach your ears, but their meaning remains hidden. Then gradually, as you learn the language, something remarkable happens. The same sounds that once seemed meaningless begin carrying messages. Conversations become understandable. Connections become possible. A new world opens before you. Many seekers experience a similar realization during spiritual awakening. They begin to suspect that life itself is speaking. Not necessarily through words, but through patterns, experiences, feelings, insights, opportunities, challenges, and signs. The universe, consciousness, life, divine intelligence, whatever name you prefer, often communicates in a language very different from ordinary speech. The challenge is not that the language is absent. The challenge is that most people have never learned how to recognize it. As a result, valuable guidance is often overlooked. Meaningful opportunities are ignored. Profound lessons pass unnoticed. Yet once awareness begins expanding, a fascinating shift occurs. You start seeing meaning where you once saw randomness. You begin recognizing connections where you once saw isolated events. And slowly, the language of life becomes easier to understand. One of the primary ways this language expresses itself is through patterns. Consider a simple example. Imagine someone who repeatedly finds themselves in relationships with emotionally unavailable partners. At first, they blame bad luck. Then they blame circumstances. Then they blame other people. Eventually, however, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The same lesson keeps appearing in different forms. Different faces. Different names. The same experience. Why? Because life often repeats lessons until they are understood. This is one of the most important principles on the path of self-realization. The universe is not merely responding to your actions. It is constantly reflecting your consciousness back to you. Until the lesson is learned, the pattern tends to continue. Pause for a moment and reflect. Are there any recurring patterns in your own life? Recurring fears? Recurring conflicts? Recurring challenges? Recurring disappointments? What might they be trying to teach you? Many people spend years asking, why does this keep happening to me? A more empowering question is, what is this trying to show me? That shift alone can transform your relationship with life. Because instead of viewing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you begin viewing yourself as a student of consciousness. You begin searching for wisdom rather than blame. And wisdom has a remarkable way of revealing itself when sincerely sought. This principle appears throughout spiritual traditions. In Proverbs 4 verse 7, we find, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. Notice that the verse does not simply encourage acquiring information. Wisdom is something deeper. Information tells you what happened. Wisdom helps you understand why it happened and how to grow from it. The language of the universe is largely a language of wisdom. Sometimes that wisdom arrives through opportunities. Sometimes through challenges. And often through both. There is an old story about a man who prayed daily for strength. Years passed. Yet instead of becoming stronger, life seemed to become more difficult. New challenges appeared. Unexpected obstacles emerged. Finally, frustrated, he cried out, "Why haven't you answered my prayer?" And in the silence of his heart came an unexpected realization. The challenges themselves had been the answer. Strength is not given. Strength is developed. The situations he resisted were the very experiences building what he requested. How often does life operate this way? We ask for patience and receive situations requiring patience. We ask for courage and receive opportunities to overcome fear. We ask for wisdom and encounter lessons that stretch our understanding. The answer often arrives disguised as the journey. Take a deep breath and consider this. Could some of the challenges in your life be serving a greater purpose than you currently realize? Could they be preparing you for something? Could they be revealing aspects of yourself waiting to be discovered? One of the most overlooked languages of the universe is intuition. Unlike fear, intuition tends to be quiet. Unlike anxiety, it rarely feels frantic. It often arrives as a calm knowing. A subtle inner signal. A gentle pull toward one direction and away from another. Unfortunately, many people have become disconnected from this guidance system. Modern life is noisy. The mind is constantly stimulated. Notifications, obligations, media, and endless distractions compete for attention. In such an environment, intuition can easily be drowned out. Yet awakening often involves rediscovering this inner voice. Imagine standing beside a radio station broadcasting wisdom 24 hours a day. The signal is present. But if your receiver is overwhelmed with static, you cannot hear it. The problem is not the broadcast. The problem is the interference. Stillness helps reduce that interference. Meditation helps reduce that interference. Reflection helps reduce that interference. Silence helps reduce that interference. This is one reason spiritual practices have remained valuable across centuries. They do not create truth. They help remove the noise preventing us from perceiving it. Another language of the universe is emotion. Many people misunderstand emotions. They either suppress them or become controlled by them. Neither approach leads to wisdom. Emotions are often messengers. They reveal information about our beliefs, perceptions, and assumptions. Fear may reveal attachment. Anger may reveal wounded expectations. Jealousy may reveal hidden desires. Peace may reveal alignment. Joy may reveal authenticity. The goal is not to judge emotions. The goal is to listen to what they are attempting to communicate. Think of emotions as dashboard indicators in a vehicle. When a warning light appears, you do not become angry at the light. You investigate what it is pointing toward. Likewise, emotions often point toward aspects of consciousness that require attention. The universe also communicates through timing. Many seekers discover that certain opportunities emerge only after particular lessons have been learned. At first, this can feel frustrating. Yet in hindsight, the timing often reveals remarkable intelligence. How many times have people later realized? If that had happened earlier, I would not have been ready. Life frequently unfolds according to rhythms larger than our immediate desires. This does not mean we become passive. It means we learn to cooperate with the process rather than constantly fighting it. As Isaiah 30 verse 21 beautifully states, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" This verse captures something many awakened individuals eventually discover. Guidance is often available. The challenge is becoming receptive enough to recognize it. Not every coincidence is a cosmic message. Not every feeling is intuition. Not every event contains hidden meaning. Discernment remains essential. Yet neither should we dismiss every meaningful experience as mere randomness. The wise seeker learns to remain open while grounded. Curious while discerning. Receptive while thoughtful. As awareness expands, life gradually transforms from a collection of isolated events into a meaningful conversation. You begin recognizing that every experience contains the potential for insight. Every challenge contains the potential for growth. Every encounter contains the potential for learning. Every moment contains the potential for awakening. Practical reflection exercise. Tonight, before sleep, ask yourself the following question. What is life trying to teach me right now? Write the question on a piece of paper or in a journal. Then sit quietly for 5 minutes. Do not force an answer. Simply become available to one. Over the next several days, pay attention. Notice conversations. Notice dreams. Notice ideas that arise unexpectedly. Notice recurring themes. Notice what repeatedly captures your attention. Often, the answers we seek arrive gradually rather than all at once. The universe rarely shouts. More often, it whispers. And those who learn to listen discover that guidance has been present all along. In the next chapter, we will explore one of the most profound discoveries on the path of awakening, the difference between the false self you have learned to identify with and the true self that has been quietly observing your entire life. The false self and the true self. Imagine standing before a mirror every day of your life. Year after year, you look into that mirror and become so familiar with the reflection that you begin believing the reflection is who you are. You study its appearance. You protect its image. You build your entire identity around it. Then one day, someone asks a simple question. Who is the one looking into the mirror? Suddenly, everything changes. For perhaps the first time, your attention shifts away from the reflection and toward the observer. This shift lies at the heart of self-realization. It is one of the most profound discoveries a human being can make. Most people spend their lives identifying with what spiritual traditions often call the false self. The false self is not evil. It is not something to fight against. It is simply a mistaken identity. It is the collection of labels, roles, memories, beliefs, fears, achievements, and stories that we have accumulated throughout life. It is the image we carry of ourselves. The problem is not that these things exist. The problem arises when we believe they are the entirety of who we are. From childhood, we begin constructing this identity. People tell us who we are. You are smart. You are shy. You are talented. You are difficult. You are successful. You are not good enough. Some labels feel positive. Others feel pain. Yet all of them contribute to the psychological structure we call the self. Over time, these descriptions become deeply embedded. We stop questioning them. We assume they are true. We build our lives around them. But are they? Pause for a moment and reflect. If every label were removed, who would remain? If your job disappeared, would you still exist? If your possessions vanished, would you still exist? If your accomplishments were forgotten, would you still exist? If your opinions changed tomorrow, would you still exist? Of course. Something remains. Something has always remained. Something deeper than every role you have ever played. This deeper presence is what many spiritual traditions refer to as the true self. The true self is not a personality. It is not a social identity. It is not a collection of thoughts. It is the awareness that experiences all of those things. Consider your own life. You have had countless thoughts. Yet you are not those thoughts. Thoughts come and go. You remain. You have experienced countless emotions. Yet you are not those emotions. Emotions rise and fall. You remain. Your body has changed dramatically since childhood. Yet despite those changes, there is a sense of continuity. A sense of being. A silent awareness that has accompanied every stage of your life. That awareness is closer to your true nature than any identity you have ever adopted. There is an ancient story about a lion cub raised among sheep. Because the cub grew up surrounded by sheep, it believed it was one of them. It copied their behavior. It feared what they feared. It lived exactly as they lived. One day, an adult lion appeared. The cub was terrified. The older lion dragged the frightened cub to a still pond and pointed toward the reflection in the water. For the first time, the cub saw its true nature. It realized it had never been a sheep. It had only believed it was. The awakening process often feels similar. You do not become something new. You recognize what you have always been. Many spiritual teachers have emphasized this truth. The journey is not about acquiring a higher self. It is about uncovering the self that already exists beneath conditioning. This realization can feel liberating. But it can also feel unsettling. Why? Because the false self does not disappear without resistance. The ego, as it is often called, derives its sense of security from familiar identities. It wants certainty, control, validation, recognition. When awakening begins, these structures may feel threatened. Suddenly, questions emerge. Who am I without this role? Who am I without this story? Who am I without this fear? The ego often interprets these questions as danger. Yet they are actually invitations. Invitations into greater freedom. Take a deep breath and consider this. How much of your suffering has come from defending an image of yourself? How much energy has been spent trying to prove your worth? How much anxiety has arisen from maintaining a particular identity? The false self is often fragile because it depends on external conditions. It needs approval. It needs success. It needs certainty. The true self requires none of these things. The true self is complete before achievement. Whole before recognition. Valuable before validation. This is why spiritual awakening often brings a profound sense of peace. Not because life's circumstances become perfect, but because your identity becomes less dependent on them. There is a remarkable verse in the Bible that reflects this understanding. In Exodus 3 verse 14, God declares, "I am that I am." Many spiritual thinkers have contemplated the significance of these words. Before any description comes the simple fact of being. I am. Not, I am successful. Not, I am wealthy. Not, I am important. Simply. I am. Pure existence. Pure awareness. Pure presence. Neville Goddard frequently emphasized the power of these words. He taught that, I am, represents the creative center of consciousness. Every belief we attach to those words influences our experience. If someone repeatedly says, I am unworthy. I am unlucky. I am powerless. The subconscious mind gradually accepts those assumptions. Life begins reflecting them back. But when awareness awakens, a new possibility emerges. You begin choosing consciously. You become aware of the identities you have inherited. You examine them. Question them. Transform them. This is where self-realization and subconscious reprogramming intersect. You cannot effectively change your assumptions while remaining unconscious of them. Awareness must come first. Recognition precedes transformation. Imagine living in a house with dirty windows. For years, you assume the world outside is dim and unclear. Then one day, someone cleans the glass. The world itself did not change. Your ability to perceive it changed. Likewise, awakening does not necessarily alter reality. It alters the lens through which reality is experienced. The false self is the dirty window. The true self is the awareness looking through it. As awakening deepens, many people notice a fascinating shift. They become less reactive, less defensive, less controlled by external circumstances. This does not mean they stop feeling emotions. Rather, they stop becoming completely identified with them. Anger may arise, but they observe it. Fear may appear, but they observe it. Thoughts may come and go, but they observe them. The observer becomes more stable than the experiences being observed. This stability is one of the great gifts of spiritual maturity. It allows you to remain centered amidst uncertainty, grounded amidst change, present amidst complexity. Practical reflection exercise. Find a quiet place where you will not be interrupted. Close your eyes. Take several slow breaths. Then ask yourself, what am I aware of? Notice sounds. Notice sensations. Notice thoughts. Notice emotions. Then ask, who is aware of these experiences? Do not search for an intellectual answer. Simply rest in the question. Allow yourself to experience the difference between awareness and the objects of awareness. Reprogramming the subconscious mind. There is a story about a farmer who inherited a vast piece of land from his ancestors. For years, he struggled to grow healthy crops. No matter how hard he worked, the harvest remained disappointing. He blamed the weather. He blamed the seeds. He blamed circumstances beyond his control. One day, an experienced gardener visited the farm. After carefully observing the land, the gardener discovered something important. The soil itself had become neglected. Weeds had taken root beneath the surface. The farmer had been focusing entirely on the visible crops while ignoring the invisible foundation that produced them. The solution was simple, though not easy. Change the soil. The harvest would eventually follow. This story beautifully illustrates one of the most important principles of spiritual transformation. Most people focus on changing external circumstances while neglecting the inner conditions that create those circumstances. They attempt to change the harvest without changing the soil. The subconscious mind is that soil. It is one of the most powerful and least understood aspects of human experience. Every thought you repeatedly entertain. Every belief you repeatedly accept. Every assumption you repeatedly reinforce. Every emotional pattern you repeatedly practice. Gradually sinks beneath conscious awareness and becomes part of your subconscious programming. Once established, these programs influence perception, behavior, decisions, habits, expectations, and ultimately the reality you experience. This is why two people can encounter similar circumstances yet interpret them completely differently. The event may be the same. The subconscious programming is different. Pause for a moment and reflect. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to expect opportunities while others expect problems? How do some naturally anticipate success while others unconsciously prepare for disappointment? The difference often lies beneath conscious awareness. It resides within assumptions that have become deeply rooted over time. Joseph Murphy taught that the subconscious mind accepts what is impressed upon it repeatedly. Like fertile soil, it does not carefully evaluate every seed. It simply nurtures what is planted. Whether the seed is empowering or limiting, the soil responds similarly. This principle is both challenging and liberating. Challenging because it means we cannot blame every circumstance on external factors. Liberating because it means transformation is possible. If assumptions can be learned, they can also be changed. If beliefs can be conditioned, they can also be reconditioned. If patterns can be programmed, they can also be reprogrammed. The first step is awareness. You cannot change what remains unconscious. Imagine trying to renovate a house while refusing to enter certain rooms. No matter how much work you do elsewhere, hidden areas continue influencing the overall structure. Likewise, many people attempt personal growth while avoiding the beliefs operating beneath the surface. They focus on positive thinking while ignoring deeply rooted assumptions. They repeat affirmations while secretly believing the opposite. The subconscious mind responds primarily to what is accepted as true, not merely what is spoken. This is why awakening is so important. Awareness shines light into previously hidden areas of consciousness. It reveals the beliefs shaping your experience. It exposes assumptions you may have carried for years without questioning. Take a deep breath and consider this. What beliefs about yourself have you accepted without examination? Perhaps you learned them during childhood. Perhaps they emerged through painful experiences. Perhaps they were inherited from family, culture, or society. Examples might include: I am not good enough. Success is difficult. Life is a struggle. I always get overlooked. I am unlucky. People cannot be trusted. Money creates problems. Many individuals never consciously choose these beliefs. They simply absorb them. Then years later, they wonder why life keeps reflecting the same patterns. The subconscious mind is remarkably faithful. It continually seeks evidence supporting what it has accepted as true. This is why assumptions matter so deeply. Neville Goddard often emphasized that assumptions harden into facts. At first glance, this idea may seem mysterious. Yet consider how assumptions influence everyday experience. Someone who assumes they are unworthy may unknowingly reject opportunities. They may overlook encouragement. They may interpret neutral events negatively. The assumption shapes perception. Perception shapes behavior. Behavior shapes results. The cycle reinforces itself. Over time, the assumption appears confirmed. The same process works in positive directions as well. A person who assumes growth is possible tends to notice possibilities. They remain open to learning. They persist through challenges. The assumption gradually influences outcomes. The key insight is this. The subconscious mind often creates experiences that align with its dominant programming. This does not mean every event is consciously created. Life remains complex. External factors exist. Unexpected situations occur. Yet our inner assumptions profoundly influence how reality is perceived, interpreted, and navigated. This is where spiritual signs become especially valuable. They often reveal subconscious patterns waiting to be transformed. Imagine repeatedly encountering situations that trigger feelings of rejection. Rather than viewing these experiences as punishment, what if they are invitations? What if life is revealing a hidden belief that requires healing? What if the recurring pattern is not evidence of failure but evidence of awareness emerging? The universe frequently illuminates what the subconscious mind conceals. This is why awakening and reprogramming go hand in hand. As awareness expands, unconscious material rises into view. You begin recognizing thoughts you once automatically believed. You begin observing assumptions rather than blindly obeying them. This creates space for transformation. One of the most effective ways to reprogram the subconscious mind is through repetition combined with emotion. The subconscious responds strongly to experiences charged with feeling. Think about your most vivid memories. They are rarely remembered because of logic alone. They are remembered because emotion strengthened their imprint. The same principle can be used intentionally. When empowering ideas are repeatedly combined with genuine feeling, new patterns gradually take root. This is why visualization has been used across many spiritual and psychological traditions. Visualization is not merely fantasy. It is the practice of familiarizing the subconscious mind with a desired possibility. Imagine a person who wishes to become more confident. Each day they spend a few minutes imagining themselves acting confidently, speaking confidently, making decisions confidently, feeling confident. Over time, the subconscious begins accepting this identity as increasingly familiar. The internal blueprint changes. And eventually, behavior begins reflecting that change. The Bible points toward this principle in Proverbs 23 verse 7. As he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Notice the emphasis. Living from higher consciousness. There is an ancient story about two stonecutters working side by side. A traveler approached the first man and asked, "What are you doing?" The stonecutter replied with frustration, "I am breaking rocks all day long. It is exhausting work." The traveler then approached the second stonecutter and asked the same question. The second man smiled and said, "I am building a cathedral." Both men were performing the same task. Both held the same tools. Both faced the same conditions. Yet they lived in entirely different realities. The difference was not in what they were doing. The difference was in their consciousness. This simple story reveals a profound truth. Life is not experienced solely through circumstances. Life is experienced through the awareness with which we meet those circumstances. As awakening deepens, a remarkable shift begins to occur. You stop seeing yourself merely as someone moving through life. Instead, you begin recognizing yourself as consciousness experiencing life. At first, this distinction may seem subtle. Yet it changes everything. Most people live reactively. Their inner state rises and falls according to external events. A compliment improves their mood. Criticism destroys it. Success creates confidence. Failure creates self-doubt. Good news produces peace. Bad news produces fear. Their experience of life becomes dependent upon conditions they cannot fully control. Living from higher consciousness involves a different relationship with reality. It means discovering a center within yourself that remains stable regardless of external circumstances. This does not mean becoming emotionally numb. It does not mean pretending difficulties do not exist. Rather, it means recognizing that your deepest identity is greater than any temporary experience. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The winds rage. Rain falls heavily. Thunder shakes the sky. Yet beneath the storm, deep within the earth, there is stillness. Awakening teaches you how to live from that stillness. The storms of life may continue. But your center becomes less disturbed by them. Pause for a moment and reflect. How much of your suffering has come from believing that peace can only exist when conditions are perfect? How many years have been spent waiting for life to finally settle down before allowing yourself to feel whole? Many people postpone happiness. They postpone peace. They postpone fulfillment. They tell themselves, I will be at peace when. I will be happy when. I will feel complete when. Yet higher consciousness reveals something extraordinary. Peace is not the reward at the end of the journey. Peace is a way of traveling. The kingdom within. One of the most powerful spiritual teachings ever spoken appears in Luke 17 verse 21. The kingdom of God is within you. For centuries, people have searched externally for what these words suggest already exists internally. They search through possessions, achievements, status, relationships, approval. Yet the deeper wisdom remains unchanged. What you seek externally often reflects a deeper longing to reconnect with what already exists within. This realization does not make worldly goals unimportant. You can still pursue success. You can still build a meaningful life. You can still create abundance. The difference is that your sense of worth no longer depends upon obtaining those things. You create from wholeness rather than for wholeness. You achieve from completeness rather than for completeness. This subtle shift transforms everything. Because when your identity is rooted in awareness rather than circumstance, fear loses much of its power. Higher consciousness and daily life. Many people imagine spiritual awakening as an escape from ordinary life. They picture mountaintops, monasteries, or endless meditation sessions. Yet true awakening is not about escaping life. It is about engaging life more consciously. Higher consciousness expresses itself in ordinary moments. In conversations. In decisions. In relationships. In challenges. At work. In service. The awakened individual still experiences life's responsibilities. The difference lies in how they meet them. Consider two people stuck in traffic. One becomes angry, impatient, and frustrated. The other uses the same moment as an opportunity to practice presence. The traffic is identical. The consciousness is different. The experience becomes different. This principle applies everywhere. Consciousness shapes experience. The external world matters. But your relationship with it matters even more. The power of presence. One of the clearest signs of awakening is an increased capacity for presence. Most people spend much of their lives mentally elsewhere. Thinking about yesterday. Worrying about tomorrow. Replaying conversations. Imagining future scenarios. As a result, they miss the only moment in which life is actually occurring. The present moment. Higher consciousness returns attention to the now. Not because the past and future are irrelevant. But because true power exists only in the present. You can learn now. Choose now. Love now. Observe now. Transform now. Even the subconscious mind can only be influenced in the present moment. This is why presence is so powerful. It reconnects you with the point at which change becomes possible. Take a deep breath and consider this. Right now, in this exact moment, what is lacking? Not tomorrow. Not next year. Not according to your fears. Not according to your imagination. Right now. Often, we discover that much of our suffering exists not in present reality but in mental projections. Higher consciousness helps dissolve this illusion. The awakening of inner authority. One of the greatest transformations that occurs on the spiritual path is the emergence of inner authority. Before awakening, many people rely heavily upon external validation. They seek permission from others, approval from others, direction from others, meaning from others. This dependence creates instability. Because external opinions constantly change, the awakened individual begins consulting a deeper source. Their own awareness. Their own wisdom. Their own inner knowing. This does not mean becoming arrogant. It does not mean rejecting advice. It means recognizing that truth must ultimately be experienced directly. No teacher can awaken you. No book can awaken you. No philosophy can awaken you. They can point the way. But the realization itself must arise within your own consciousness. As awakening deepens, confidence becomes less dependent upon certainty. You learn to trust yourself even when the path is unclear. You learn to move forward without needing every answer. You learn to listen inwardly. This is true inner authority. Living as a conscious creator. Many spiritual traditions teach that human beings participate in the creation of their experience. Not necessarily controlling every event, but influencing reality through perception, belief, intention, and action. The awakened individual becomes increasingly aware of this responsibility. Instead of constantly reacting to life, they begin responding consciously. Instead of reinforcing fear, they cultivate faith. Instead of reinforcing limitations, they cultivate possibility. Instead of reinforcing separation, they cultivate connection. This shift gradually transforms their reality. Not because the universe suddenly becomes different, but because their consciousness becomes different. And consciousness influences everything. Practical reflection exercise. For the next 7 days, practice conscious presence. Several times each day, pause and ask yourself, where is my attention right now? Am I fully present? Or am I lost in mental stories? Then gently bring your awareness back to the present moment. Notice your breathing. Notice your surroundings. Notice your thoughts without becoming trapped by them. Practice returning again and again. This simple exercise strengthens one of the most important capacities on the path of awakening. The ability to remain present. The ability to remain aware. The ability to remain connected to your true nature. Because higher consciousness is not something you acquire in the future. It is something you learn to recognize in the present. And once recognized, it begins transforming every aspect of your life from the inside out. In our final chapter, we will bring everything together as we explore the sacred return to yourself, the culmination of the journey towards self-realization and the beginning of an entirely new way of living. The sacred return to yourself. There is an ancient story about a man who spent his entire life searching for a magnificent temple. He had heard legends about it since childhood. The temple, they said, contained the answers to life's greatest questions. Those who found it discovered peace, wisdom, purpose, freedom. Determined to uncover its location, the man devoted decades to the search. He crossed mountains, traveling through forests, visited sacred places, studied with teachers, collected knowledge. Yet the temple remained hidden. Finally, exhausted after many years, he encountered an old sage sitting quietly beside a river. The sage listened patiently as the traveler described his lifelong quest. When he finished, the old man smiled gently and pointed toward the seeker's chest. The temple you seek, he said, has always been here. At first, the traveler was disappointed. How could something so important have been overlooked for so long? Then slowly, understanding began to emerge. He realized that every step of the journey had been leading him back to himself. Not the personality. Not the identity. Not the collection of stories he had accumulated. But the deeper awareness that had accompanied him from the very beginning. This story reflects the essence of self-realization. The spiritual journey often begins as a search for something outside ourselves. Answers. Guidance. Purpose. Truth. Yet eventually, the path reveals a surprising discovery. What we seek externally often points towards something that already exists within. Not because life has no mysteries left to explore. But because the greatest mystery has always been the one who is exploring. Throughout this audiobook, we have traveled together through many important ideas. We explored the hidden longing that often initiates awakening. We examined spiritual signs and meaningful coincidences. We discussed synchronicities, intuition, dreams, and recurring patterns. We investigated the relationship between consciousness and reality. We uncovered the distinction between the false self and the true self. We explored the power of the subconscious mind. And we considered what it means to live from higher consciousness. Yet beneath all these topics lies one central truth. Awakening is ultimately a process of remembering. Not remembering information. Remembering yourself. Remembering the awareness beneath thought. Remembering the presence beneath identity. Remembering the wholeness beneath the feeling of separation. Take a deep breath and consider this. For your entire life, experiences have come and gone. People have entered and left your story. Circumstances have changed. Beliefs have evolved. The body has changed. Thoughts have changed. Emotions have changed. Yet something has remained constant. The silent awareness witnessing it all. The awareness listening to these words right now. The awareness that has been present through every joy and every challenge. That awareness is closer to your true nature than any label you have ever carried. The journey continues. One of the most beautiful realizations on the spiritual path is understanding that awakening is not a final destination. There is no point at which a person suddenly possesses all wisdom. No moment when every question disappears. No finish line beyond which growth is unnecessary. Awakening is a living process. A continual unfolding. A continual deepening of awareness. Each insight opens the door to greater understanding. Each realization invites further exploration. Each step reveals new dimensions of truth. This should not discourage you. It should inspire you. Because it means life itself becomes a journey. Every experience becomes a teacher. Every challenge becomes an opportunity. Every encounter becomes part of the awakening process. Nothing is wasted. Even your mistakes. Even your struggles. Even your periods of confusion. Especially those. Many of the experiences you once viewed as setbacks may eventually reveal themselves as essential parts of your growth. The role of faith. As awakening progresses, faith begins taking on a deeper meaning. Not blind belief. Not unquestioning acceptance. But trust. Trust in life. Trust in the process. Trust in the wisdom that often reveals itself only after we have taken the next step. The Bible beautifully expresses this principle in Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. There will be moments when the path ahead is unclear. Moments when answers seem distant. Moments when uncertainty appears overwhelming. In those moments, remember that clarity often emerges through movement rather than waiting. You do not need to see the entire staircase to take the next step. The next step is enough. Living as an awakened seeker. Perhaps the most important question is this. What happens now? What happens after the insights? After the reflections? After the inspiration? The answer is simple. You live. But you live differently. You become more conscious of your thoughts. More conscious of your assumptions. More conscious of your choices. More conscious of your presence. You begin paying attention to the language of life. You notice patterns. You listen to intuition. You remain open to guidance. You cultivate awareness. You practice presence. You strengthen your connection to the deeper self. And gradually, awakening becomes less of an event and more of a way of being. A new relationship with reality. The awakened individual no longer sees reality as something happening to them. They begin seeing themselves as active participants in the unfolding of experience. They recognize the creative power of consciousness. They understand the influence of belief. They appreciate the importance of awareness. They realize that inner transformation and outer experience are deeply connected. This understanding creates responsibility. But it also creates freedom. Because when awareness increases, choice increases. And where choice exists, transformation becomes possible. You are no longer trapped by every inherited belief. You are no longer defined by every past experience. You are no longer limited by every fearful thought. You can observe. Choose. Respond. Create. Grow. Awaken. The sacred return. Pause for a moment and reflect. What if everything that has happened in your life has been guiding you toward this realization? What if every challenge carried a lesson? What if every longing carried a message? What if every spiritual sign was inviting you to wake up more fully? What if the journey has never been about becoming someone else? What if it has always been about returning to yourself? Not the self created by fear. Not the self shaped by conditioning. Not the self defined by limitation. But the deeper self. The aware self. The authentic self. The timeless self. The self that exists before labels and remains after them. The self that quietly observes every experience. The self that has never been broken. The self that has never been absent. The self that has been waiting patiently beneath the noise of life. This is the sacred return. The return from distraction to awareness. From fear to trust. From confusion to clarity. From unconsciousness to consciousness. From seeking to knowing. And perhaps most importantly, from forgetting to remembering. Final reflection. As this audiobook comes to an end, I invite you to carry one question with you. Who am I beyond every story I have ever told about myself? Do not rush to answer. Live the question. Explore it. Allow it to unfold. Because within that question lies one of the greatest discoveries available to any human being. The discovery of your true nature. And as you continue walking this sacred path, may you remember. The wisdom you seek is closer than you think. The guidance you seek is already speaking. The peace you seek is already present. The truth you seek is already within you. And the journey you have been traveling has never truly been about finding yourself. It has always been about remembering who you have been all along. Thank you for sharing this journey. May your path be illuminated by awareness. May your heart be guided by wisdom. May your mind be renewed by truth. And may your awakening continue, one conscious moment at a time.